Major breaking news. President Trump has just announced that he wants to expedite concealed carry permits in Washington, D.C. as part of his attempt to make the nation's capital safer and more beautiful. Let's talk about it when we get back and why this moves the Overton window in favor of the Second Amendment. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the 4 Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar. I'm proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment in America. Thank you, 2025 Gundies Awards. All right, so major breaking news out of the Trump administration. More great news. We're going to talk about why this is such big news in a moment, but let me give you the news first. President Trump has just issued an executive order, a statement entitled President Donald J. Trump will work and works to make our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., safe and beautiful. This is a statement directly from the White House itself. Specifically, Donald Trump entered an executive order making Washington, D.C. the greatest capital city in the world, pointing out that it should be the pride of all Americans to whom it belongs to visit, to brag about, to enjoy as our nation's capital. The executive order by President Trump establishes a task force, officially known as the D.C. Safe and Beautiful Task Force, that will be comprised of members of key government agencies and a whole list of them. Now, what's important here is many things. One of the things, of course, is that he intends to do as part of this effort, and we'll get to the big one in a moment, is he wants to maximize immigration enforcement to kick the illegal aliens out of D.C. He wants to improve D.C.'s police force and have them laser focus on dangerous individuals. He wants to keep violent criminals off the street. And most importantly, he specifically says, as part of this executive order, he wants to expedite concealed carry licenses for law-abiding citizens. This is a huge deal, folks. Now, we've talked about on this channel before the notion of the Overton window. The Overton window, generally defined, is essentially the range of ideas at any particular time in public, in American life, for example, that are viewed as acceptable or normal at any given time. Sometimes ideas that are out of favor become normal. Sometimes the ideas that are normal become abnormal. As the Overton window slides back and forth, capturing certain things and shifts certain ways, again, making some ideas acceptable today, when in the yesteryear, maybe they were not acceptable. The reason why I want you to understand this notion of the Overton window, of what ideas are acceptable, is the importance of what Donald Trump just did here with the nation's capital task force, specifically talking about the expedition, right? The expediting of concealed carry permit holders and concealed carry permit licenses. It's very important in the Second Amendment community that we continue to make sure that the Overton window is wide open when it comes to the notion of privately armed citizens, armed for the purposes of private and community self-defense. As we've talked about before on this channel, America is not a gun culture. America is not a gun culture. That is not accurate. It's not inaccurate, but it's not sufficiently precise. Specifically, what America is we are a private gun ownership gun culture, where that gun culture encompasses the use of privately owned firearms for self-defense and defense of community and defense of family. This is a far cry from other gun cultures like we see in Europe, where people may have shotguns to go pheasant hunting or to do sporting clays or whatnot. America is a self-defense oriented private gun ownership gun culture specifically. And it's very important that the Overton window, which again is the notion of a range of ideas and views that are acceptable to most of society at any given time, it's very important that this private gun ownership culture remain wide open in the context of the Overton window. And having statements like from President Trump in the context of these various executive orders, including this one involving D.C. and making D.C. safe and beautiful, it's very important that he continue to do this because it continues to keep the Overton window open when it comes to our right to keep and bear arms and the Second Amendment. Just to give you a sense of what happens when the Overton window shifts against an idea that perhaps you like or support, and how American culture, American values change in arguably for the worse. Before COVID, there were almost 6,000 additional movie screens in America. Hear what I just said? Before COVID hit in 2020, there were an additional almost somewhere between 5,500 and 6,000 additional movie screens than there are now, according to reporting by Variety magazine. Now, the reason why I point this out is just goes to show you that with the rise of COVID and the closures of all these public facilities by government, the Overton window in terms of going out to the movies, going to movie theaters, to public theaters, dramatically shifted away from going out to movies and shifted towards staying home and watching them at home. The Overton window, when it came to going out to the movies, shifted away from that habit, making going out to the movies less of a habit for American citizens. We do not want this to occur with the right to keep Americans. We do not want the Second Amendment to be viewed as an outlier or some sort of second-class citizen. The fact that President Trump today made it front and center the issuance and expediting the issuance of concealed carry permits in D.C. as part of this executive order on making our nation's capital safe and beautiful is important for keeping that Overton window open and in favor of the private right to keep and bear arms in self-defense as part of, again, he puts it in the context of protecting Americans from criminals and keeping criminals off the street. This is extremely important. These kind of activities, these statements, all add up to something in favor of our right to keep and bear arms, and we should continue to applaud the Trump administration for efforts like this. Now, beyond talking about getting rid of illegal aliens, allowing the police to do their job in terms of cleaning up that city against dangerous individuals, and allowing for the issuance and continued issuance and expedition of the issuance of concealed carry permits, President Trump also wrote about how terrible the city has become. Here's what he wrote in this executive order concerning Washington, D.C. Americans deserve a better capital than today's Washington. Our nation's capital, the only city that belongs to all of us, must be a symbol of pride for the American people and a safe location for public servants to do the people's work. Today, because of failed policies, it is not. Crime is near historic highs, yet D.C. police force numbers recently reached a half century low. The left is touting modest decreases in D.C. crime in 2024, but they still represent a massive increase from earlier rates. In 2023, violent crime rose by 39%. Property crime rose by 24%. This mirrors the spin they tried to put on the decreases in the rate of inflation in recent years. Inflation is still up, and so is crime, and Americans are smart enough to notice. Powerful stuff there, and President Trump continued with further discussion of how D.C. has really fallen off the deep end. This is what he writes. 2023 saw the highest number of homicides in the District of Columbia since 1997. The D.C. Metro Police Department needs at least 4,000 officers, yet has fewer than 3,500. D.C.'s failed policies opened the door to disorder, and criminals noticed. Washington, D.C. abandoned traditional pretrial release and detention and effectively replaced it with catch and release. Decriminalized marijuana. It let rioters run loose even if they vandalized property and assault police. And in 2022, the Biden U.S. Attorney for D.C. declined to prosecute 67% of arrested people who would have been tried in D.C. Superior Court. The vacuum in law enforcement has created an environment that facilitates crime and blight, encourages homelessness and vagrancy encampments, and jeopardizes public safety. So powerful stuff. But again, the idea here is this. The more Donald Trump and his administration talks about their right to keep and bear arms, concealed carry permits, preventing places like the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department from getting in the way of the Second Amendment, the more the president does these kinds of activities. Remember, we're not even 2 months into this administration. We're like on day 45. He's already done tremendous stuff for the Second Amendment. I suspect that's going to continue to be the case. I've always been a strong supporter of President Trump, going back many years, since I was on his presidential transition team, and a media surrogate for him all the way back in the 2016 campaign. Donald Trump, when it comes to our Second Amendment, is the right guy, the right time, and I think we're going to see more great stuff out of this administration. I got my fingers crossed and my hopes are high, but we have a lot of work to do because the enemy to our rights is they're wealthy, they're motivated, they control a lot of institutions, and they've been in business and control these institutions for a long time. So there's a lot of work for us to do. But the work has begun, and I got my fingers crossed it's all going to work out well in the end. But again, it won't be easy to fight for our right to keep and bear arms because, as you know, freedom is not free. So there you have it, folks. Hope you learned something here today at the 4 Boxing Hour. Make sure you follow me at X at 4 Boxing Hour. Don't forget to follow me on and subscribe both to YouTube and Rumble. I look forward to talking to you again real soon here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.